Broncos country, I need your help. The boss man came to me this morning and said, you cannot get beat by the Falcons on a race to 40,000 subscribers. So here's what I need you to do. I need loyal Broncos fans to lock us in, hit that sub button, and help us catch up to Falcons today because we are about 900 subs behind. Now, speaking of today on the show, Ja'Quan McMillian trade rumors. I didn't think there was a lot here, but apparently there are two teams that are incredibly interested in vying for his services. So we're going to get into it right away. So Ja'Quan McMillian, after the 2025 NFL draft, when we drafted Jahdae Barron in the first round, the main question, at least in my mind, for that slot corner spot was, what's going to happen to J-Mac? Because that's predominantly where Jahdae plays, is that slot nickel corner. Now, he's a lot more versatile than that. He could play outside corner. He can actually even play a little bit of safety. But his primary position is the nickel. We've already got one of those. So now I'm starting to question everything and think, well, is there a possibility that a team could be calling and saying, hey, we'll take him off your hands for the right price? And believe it or not, there was an article written by PFN, a guy named Sterling Zai, who wrote this specifically. With Patrick Surtain and Riley Moss looking on the outside, Barron's arrival would seemingly squeeze out slot cornerback Ja'Quan McMillan. A former undrafted free agent, McMillan has developed into an effective and underrated slot corner. That's the truth. Effective doesn't even do the word justice. In fact, last year, he only allowed 6 yards per target and an opposing passer rating, so the other quarterback, of 85.7. Those are outstanding numbers. Now, there were some, growing pains earlier on in the season, but the latter half of the year, McMillan really came into his own and strongly performed in that second half. But now you have to ask yourself that question that I asked you earlier. With our first-round pick, what's the snap count going to look like, right? Is it going to be McMillan majority of the time? Is it going to be 50-50? Is Jahdae going to end up taking majority of the snaps? I don't know necessarily what it looks like. We're going to have to wait for OTAs, but I can tell you this wholeheartedly. He's not getting traded this year. No way in hell it happens. This no-fly zone that Denver is building is too good, and I think Sean and George Payton look at it and say, if Ja'Quan becomes our worst slot corner, that's a great problem to have. And in 2024, you can tell exactly what I mean. 10 PBUs is fantastic. He's also pretty decent against the run. Don't look at his PFF grade. It's not the Bible as like, hey, this is exactly what we should be, qualifying and grading our players on. No. It's kind of a reference point. PFF doesn't tell the entire story. But J-Mac's performance last year, combined with Jahdae, the prospect, there's a lot to be excited about. This Broncos cornerback room might be one of the best in the league. Forget top 10, forget top 5. This is probably a top 3 unit. Riley Moss right now is probably your worst. And that's saying something. Now, again, this is all, with the understanding that Jahdae can play. If he's a bust, then you obviously have your answer. But I truly don't think with his skill last year in college football that you're going to see that in any sort of capacity. I think you're going to be looking at one of the best cornerback rooms in the entire NFL. And I think when we face off with Tennessee week 1, we are going to make Cam Ward's life a living hell. I feel like I should ask you this question, though, just for the shits and giggles of it all. Will the Broncos trade Ja'Quan McMillian? Give me a yes, give me a no. I'm typing hell no. So if I could write HN, that would be my initial jotting down in the comment section below. But let me know what you think and defend your reason in the comment section. Now, I did mention at the beginning of this video, there are two teams that are seemingly interested in Ja'Quan McMillian. The first being the Cowboys. And at first when I was starting to think this, I was like, didn't they just draft Savon Revel in round 3 of the NFL draft in 2025? They did, but corner seems to be one of their biggest issues alongside wide receiver. Now, One of the beat reporters and bloggers for the Cowboys, his name is Brian Martin, said this: whether to provide some much-needed depth in the slot or to add a potential starter, the nickel cornerback position is one we wouldn't be surprised to see the Cowboys target at some point for the remainder of the offseason. And with that in mind, they should inquire about Denver Broncos corner Ja'Quan McMillian. So this is the moves they've made so far in the offseason at that secondary, position. It's not really a position, but that kind of lumping it all into one. They re-signed Israel Makuma. I think that's how you say his name. They traded for Bills cornerback Kyer Elam and drafted Savon Revel Jr., who last year came off of a really bad ACL injury, but when it comes to his, length and his athleticism, he was one of the most highly touted freaks from a physical perspective in the NFL draft. But now the question becomes, will Jerry Jones make the call? Look, they already traded for George Pickens. And we know that Jerry is one of these players that loves to home grow the Cowboys players through the draft. He very rarely makes any moves in free agency, and very rarely will you see him trade for a superstar player or trades in general. So if I had to answer that, I would say no straight off the bat. And speaking of the guy that we're talking about right now, we'll talk about J-Mac, but Jahdae Barron jerseys are officially available with our friends over at Fanatics. So here's what I did for you. I took this link right here. I put it in the comments and description of today's video. I've already gotten a bunch of gear ready to go for the 2025 NFL season, but if you want to start shopping immediately for either Jahdae Barron when it comes in, RJ Harvey or Pat Bryant, or any of the Broncos rookies, make sure you do it with Fanatics. Again, this link right here in the comments and description of today's video. The other team that might be interested, another NFC team, the Carolina Panthers. Now, truth be told, this one probably makes the most sense considering how bad their defense was last year. They ranked dead last in opponents' points per game. But their Sports Illustrated page actually had this to say about maybe acquiring J-Mac. The Carolina Panthers could be in the market for another defensive back, even after signing Trevon Moehrig, drafting Lathan Ransom, extending Jaycee Horn, and re-signing Michael Jackson. Their secondary is not the deepest in the NFL. Well, that's, the understatement of the century. If you averaged or allowed 30 points per game to opposing teams, you suck, point blank. But the Panthers' secondary moves this offseason kind of looked like this, right? The Trevon Moehrig in free agency. They drafted Lathan Ransom, who I wasn't necessarily super high on. I thought he kind of was a mid-round pick, and it's kind of exactly where he went. The extension of Jaycee Horn, if he can stay healthy, is a good move. And then Mike Jackson, another, solid NFL starter, but he's not going to blow the brakes off of any team that he goes against. So the offer to me from either one of these teams would have to be too good to pass up. And let me explain that just a little bit more. You would have to make sure that the draft capital and the draft compensation would be so sensational that you would feel obligated to get rid of J-Mac. Otherwise, I'm looking at our cornerback room and I say, who's going to stop it right now? Even if we split the snaps 50-50 between Barron and McMillan, who's going to stop that? Pat Surtain is the best corner in the league, and Riley Moss has come a long way from 2023 when he was drafted. Entering year 3, he's got a lot of momentum riding on into the season. Couple that with the great job McMillan did at the second half of the last season, and Jahdae Barron's draft stock rising every single day, and how he performed and led in rookie minicamp. Good luck to the other opponents trying to stop this team. Throwing on him will be almost impossible. So, my final thought, trade isn't happening. At least not this year. Obviously, you have to do your due diligence. You have to take a step back after the 2025 season, see the play of both Barron and McMillan, and of the secondary as a whole, and then reevaluate. Now, there is risk in that because if McMillan takes a step back or gets overshadowed by Barron, then you're probably not going to have a huge trade market for him anyway. But I think you take the gamble, you ride on this whole cornerback room being what it is right now, heading into the 2025 season, and just let it play out. One more final reminder for all you loyal Broncos fans out there. This is where we currently stand. This is the closest we are to another channel here at Chat Sports. 36,277 to 35,383. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead, lock us in, and hit that subscribe button. Like the video and share this with a Broncos fan in your life. My name is Moose. Until next time, be cool.